over a metre of water in just a matter of hours. And this family, the Ottersides, with their nearly 50 years of ownership, this establishment, went to bed with a thriving business and woke up with that image. No fire to be found, uninsured, uninsurable, left empty, unusable. But I promised a happy ending. And the happy ending is that March 2025, a local regional entrepreneur, Amir Bayat, Aside, originally an Iranian refugee, fell for the village charm, and as a labour of love, in his part-time, he slowly restored the pub in the upper building, and in March last year, one full decade later, the Bridge Ended, 300 years old, has opened again. Warmth, chatter, good food, drink. If you're ever in Northumberland, in the far north of England, please do visit. So that year ago, in March 2025, the European Union, here in Brussels, was busy adopting the Preparedness Union. And why the story? Well, the story because climate resilience building, which we all so desperately need at all levels, needs to move forward with the whole of society. And people need to understand how climate risk affects them locally, economically, culturally, socially, and their environment. And so it's not an issue of scientific doomsday abstract. It's not a next generation problem. It's about where people are now and how they live now, how we live now. And so I wanted to take you out on that bigger picture. And one of our challenges in the department dealing with disasters is that we are seeing the impact of climate extremes become more and more severe as far as our work. At the European level, under the European Civil Protection Mechanism, we only intervene above a certain level when national capacity, local capacity cannot cope. And this March 2025 EU Preparedness Union strategy that we adopted is a fundamental shift in how Europe is approaching crisis, from reacting to emergencies to proactively preparing for all kinds of crises, extreme weather included. And I know that we've got a lot to talk about, so I'm going to try and shorten a little bit, although I was asked to go a little bit longer, because what we've seen in recent years, from COVID-19 pandemic to the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine, the extreme weather events and infrastructure disruption left, right and centre, is that business as usual is a last century concept. Crises today are complex, cross-border, cross-sectoral. The consequences show up the interdependencies, and crises do and can cascade rapidly across all sectors: health, energy, transport, digital, social system, cultural heritage. So therefore, preparedness has to also be all-hazard, whole of government, whole of society. And here I am in your specialist domain, involving both the public authorities at all levels and the private sector. And so climate resilience by design, how does that fit? If we have preparedness by design, the wide range of risks and threats that we're facing, by definition, it has to include climate resilience. And my colleagues in DG Climate are very busy, as I'm sure many of you know, preparing for a package that has already been announced that will be adopted later this year and is currently out for public consultation on precisely how that climate resilience mainstream approach should look. So now on the Preparedness Union side, across the Commission and across all sectors, we're moving from design to delivery. There's a lot I could say on that, but I won't go into it now. Operationalization and partnerships, shaking investments, it's all about the money, folks, at the moment. And these are the real key challenges that we have right now. Obviously, this cannot be delivered by public authorities alone. I make the point again, societal functions depend heavily on private actors across Europe and across actors who deliver supply chains, infrastructure, logistics, data, services, ability to communicate. And this is why public-private cooperation in the area of preparing for disasters is a big pillar at the centre of the preparedness unit. I'm gonna try, because of the title of the panel, to just look at where we see some opportunity. And now I'm going to contradict that by saying that, 2026, folks, I mean, my goodness, we feel like we've lived the year in a few weeks as far as international affairs are going. And so we need to embrace that uncertainty, and we need to embrace that volatility and use it as momentum for engagement across all the sectors, businesses and communities. We need to understand that those risks are shared and we all have ownership, and we need to let people know, like it or not, what their ownership of risk looks like. So burying our heads in this sand of climate denial is definitely not an option. I'm speaking to the converted here, but we certainly haven't won this at a global level. So it's not about mitigation or adaptation anymore. It's, yes, every single degree of mitigation will help. But yes, although we're not there formally in international framework terms, we have got 1.5 degrees 3 years in a row, and we've got to start looking ahead. So this is where we see the links, and we really like to congratulate you for bringing together already in this environment projects which are financially coming from different pockets, one from the climate side, one from the disaster side. This is actually a key conclusion that came in from the Iniesta report that led to the Preparedness Union. We need to get those pockets of money better together, because that's a very practical barrier to many in terms of adaptation down at the local level. Yes, of course, we see the role for addressing the insurance gap, for risk sharing. As you know, many of you know, we have this slightly bizarre potential moral hazard at a European level called the Solidarity Fund, which up till now has delivered more after disasters than has ever been delivered up front through prevention of disasters. So we can talk a little bit about that. And I think I was going to finish on a note about insurance, but I'm surrounded by people who know far more about that than I do. So just in terms of the protection gap and the role we can see at a bigger picture for that. Clearly it, in some ways, and back to my story, is about, it can be about and help improve really risk awareness down to all levels and incentivizing adaptation, as well as the obvious supporting better recovery after disasters, and so the resilience piece. So I hope that sets us off to the right tone, and we'll stop there so we've got time to hear from you. Thank you very much. I think there was a wonderful introduction for that discussion that we can have now. So as I said, we would project for you the questions. The panelists, they already have been seeing them, and they would pick whatever they want. You have it also here. Right. So you can pick, or you can speak, as you wish in the context of that we have a major opportunity for a transition that will make resilient and will lead Europe to be competitive. And I love the sentence that you say that resilience is equal to competitiveness, right? Because this is the context of exactly what we're talking about. So please feel free. I leave you 5 minutes each to add value to this discussion, which was introduced very very kindly by Julie. So I will start by Deniso's piece. We go in that direction, and then if you want to add some words at the end, Julie, that you also what.
You mean as the opportunity for the first question, or in general?
Yeah, you can choose whichever questions you feel fits more to your expertise or what you never want to add.
I have taken so many notes the whole day.
Or even go beyond the water, right?
I need to address a lot of issues. I will try to make it, connected with the context, and maybe to bring more food for thought, and let's say pass it over to the fellow participants. I would like to start. I mean, we all agree here that the climate change is present, because this is not always, let's say, the case with some politicians. Some believe that it's coming and going. Some believe that it's something that is not here today. Yep. So I would just like to share a few uh, insurance data coming from an insurance company, which are, I would say, at least concerning. So last year, 2025, we had another breaking record, in the insured losses globally deriving from NatCat. So we have again exceeded the 100 billion US dollars indemnified insured losses global. Don't ask me why we measure it in US dollars, but this is the measurement. So this in the past, it was not the case. Usually we were exceeding the 100 billion threshold every 4 to 5 years. Depend. But since 2020, there has not been a single year that we have not exceeding the 100 billion threshold. So some years have been better, some years have been even worse, but the 100 billion is becoming the new normal. So as you understand, this is putting a lot of pressure into the insurance sector, because we realize that there is no actually cycle on the cat losses. It's the new reality, and actually we should act that this is now what it is. So we must see how to confront such numbers. For Greece, in order to bring you some data from Greece, and we are here with the Hellenic Insurance Association and with the Western municipalities of Athens. We had in the last 30 years 800 million of insured losses just from floods. In the last 30 years, 800. Now, in the last 5 years, and I'm boring you with numbers, but they are really concerning. In the last 5 years, these losses have been over 500 million. Just the 5 years. So 30 years, 800, but the last 500. And what is really concerning, one event is responsible for the 400 million out of these 500. So as you can see, frequency is rising and severity leads to a completely different level. So I guess that this is where insurance should step in, but insurance is already, I have to say, because of this 100 billion of insured losses. But the gap is also there. So the gap means you either not insure everything, or there is a gap of a lot of people or a lot of businesses that are not insured properly or not insured at all. In order to be there, and because I heard a lot of things on insurance today, we as insurers have an issue. When there is 100% certainty, we say that this is not insurable. So 100% certainty risks must be mitigated in other ways. So the way to insure them is to decrease the possibility of happening. The only way to do that is to start developing in a different way, start building in a different way, start different building codes. And maybe in this way, we have to make also some difficult decisions along the way. So insurance is here to help, but insurers and reinsurers need to see that there is a whole risk management system in place, meaning you analyze, you assess the risks, then you plan, and then you have preventive measures, you have disaster preparedness, you have disaster recovery, and in this whole, and allow me to use a cliche word, in this whole ecosystem, yes, insurance can play a significant role and can be part of the whole thing, especially on things like risk prevention, loss minimization, and of course recovery and reconstruction, because the indemnification and payouts are also very important. One good example that I can give you, and it's coming from Greece, because the way I see is we have a lack of actually responding quickly. And I think I've heard that also with agricultural assurance. We discuss a lot, but let's say actions are not really happening. So one good thing is how we manage earthquake in Greece, which is a very good example what should do with other hazards. So the example for earthquake was that there was already a building code for earthquake by the 1960s. So then the government realized that this is a big hazard because some earthquakes happened and they were devastating for different cities in Greece. The code was established, but the code since then has gone through at least 5 or 6 updates. So we had the latest one being 2006, and it has enhanced, it has improved, it has grown, and nowadays what is built under the latest code, we consider it, let's say, not impossible to be damaged, but a lot less vulnerable, a lot more resilient and sustainable. So this shows that when governments want, when politics decide, then things are possible. And there's no complaint. Everyone has bought into this code. And I believe this is the only way we can do it also with emerging risks. Insurers call them secondary risk, but nowadays these are, let's say, primary risks like floods, like hail, like wildfires, and heat wave is actually causing all these things to happen. I would like to stop now and
Thank you, thank you. I think it's a very good point, your last point on earthquakes, because it means that we are not the two communities, the disaster risk management community and the climate change community should not be apart. They should be together because at the very end we can build upon many good experiences. I will pass to Sira now because information is critical for that, and how information can I mean you are free to answer the questions, but I think what we were hearing from ahead this morning was extremely important also in this context of how we are going to make these transitions better informed, better connected, from the resilience to adaptation to mitigation, to protection of nature and so on. So, what are your impressions? I mean, in this context.
Okay, so yes, well, I'll try also to link to two of those questions about going to information. Let's say that we have been working since long time on this cycle from data to information, to knowledge, and possibly to wisdom for urban planners, for example, that we are not that wise in our choices, certainly. So what is the relationship? Because it's not only about the data. The data themselves will not help so much if we are not investing also in interpretation, in explanation, in modeling, as was said this morning by my colleague. So the point is, from data we can infer some constant behavior, some hotspots of hazards, as Mia showed before. But also we need knowledge to understand what data do we need and how we can better leverage on existing technologies that permit a better management of data. But it's again also for artificial intelligence, garbage in, garbage out. So unless, as we said this morning in the first panel, unless you use good quality data, you will not achieve the results. It's not a magic stick.
So in this respect, I really wanted to touch upon the point of transition. So we said that one important transition is in the understanding for public administrations that data is not an afterthought. It's not that first they do their duty and then they think about the data. There is a tendency, because, for example, I've been working for a long time with firefighters, and they were very reluctant to report what they're doing or the damages because they don't spend time. So after they have done an intervention, they write, and then sometimes I read the report, and even in Italian I had some difficulties in understanding what was written there. Because it's too fast, right? It's like the doctor, it doesn't pay attention to this. But we need to value this step of learning from the intervention you had. And yes, we needed to bridge the pre-climate change and the disaster community, because the transition is actually also, is climate change getting towards a new transition? To a certain sense, yes, we have seen the cities, right? The cities that are part of the missions. So through sustainability before and climate change adaptation now, cities are becoming much more aware of what they can do in this regard. I must say, much more than with respect to disasters, because we were speaking before about a school I did in Norcia after the earthquake 2016. They discovered, the school was on an active fault. And imagine what, they did not relocate the school, they cut it into parks. So the toilet is on the one side of the fault, is on the other side. The Greek no part solution.
This is not
Perfect. One last point I would like to mention is what is the role of researchers, because at the end we are researchers. I like very much what was said before about the science for the regions. So what we as researchers, commitment like the social responsibility, universities are driving us very much on this. But the reality that we found, especially in applied sciences and disciplines like urban planning, which is mine, is to go in the direction not only we need the systemic frameworks, and this is something researchers can do. Researchers have more time to write reports, and that can be helpful also for public administration. But we also need to engage with practical and real things. So, for example, when we went the first time in Umbria region to survey damage data, so we go back to the data, after the flood, I told my colleague and friend, hydraulic engineer, look, it's not so much about buildings. All your damaged parts are about residential buildings. But they're not so going to be so damaged this event. It's much more about industrial areas at this time, that time. So we need forms for the industrial facilities because they are different from residential buildings. They have the machinery, the goods. And he was a little bit reluctant at the beginning, but then when we went there, he agreed that this is the case. Okay, I will stop.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And I think I will pass now to insurance. So Nicholas, the initiative was a very in-depth and very clear and understandable for someone that doesn't understand the language of insurance. So thanks.
Insurance is simple.
What is your perception and what sort of things you want to share based on the question and also what you have been listening today?
Yes, thanks very much. First of all, many thanks for the opportunity to be here. It has been a very, very interesting day with a lot of insight from all the projects, so thanks very much. I would, of course, echo a lot of the points, and the first thing maybe to start, I heard someone say, give a definition of progress, which is the reduction of risk. And so in Europe, for the last 200 years, we have had progress because we have progressively always reduced risk of disease, of anything. And we have got news, of course, to this situation where risks are actually something we can neglect. And one way to also say that we are now in a paradigm shift with a variety of crises, that we are probably moving away from this, what we have experienced, at least in Europe or in Western Europe maybe, for the last 200 years, and we need to probably have also this new mindset of getting used again to deal with more uncertainty and more risks. And so I think condition for a prosperous and stable future is also to acknowledge this reality. Of course, trying to limit as much as possible the cause of the risks. But this is probably something we need to get used to and at all levels of society, as many speakers have said today. So when it comes to climate change, I think there are three ways to deal with the issue, and they are well known. One is mitigation, reducing emissions. One is adaptation, prevention, etc. And one is intervention. So we can probably leave aside the question of emissions, which has to be dealt with at global level, mainly for today. But the other two topics are the ones that let's really park it and focus on the other two, which have been discussed today. And I think the two are really linked. That's also what Dionysios mentioned, because at the end of the day, insurance comes at the end of a chain, and the conditions of insurability are really determined by what is happening before. For instance, in terms of where we build, how we build, the quality of the intervention, and all the factors that will then determine whether a peril, a particular risk can be insured or not. And so my take on this as Insurance Europe is to try to look at what can be done at European level to increase resilience and also to increase insurance penetration, knowing that a lot of the factors that determine resilience, so adaptation, etc., and insurance penetration are determined by the national or local level. So the question really is, what can be the added value of the EU? And that's what we are working on. We've been working on a lot on this question with especially DG Klima in the last couple of years on various reports, and we're, as we speak, my colleagues are finalizing the response to the ongoing consultation that was mentioned. So and it's a difficult one. As I said, there are different realities, and there are very good reasons why there are different realities. We have very different risk exposures. You have earthquake risk in Greece. You don't have that risky in Belgium. I mean, or it's very minimal. You have very strong insurance penetration in some countries, not in others. You have the presence of a scheme or not, etc. So it's very different realities, and the question is how we can, make the best of this reality. So one of the questions is there a need for an EU scheme? That has been a topic for a long time, some sort of an EU scheme. In Insurance Europe, we have for a long time said no one size fits all, so there is no way to have one particular miracle solution that would apply to all the countries. And the question of whether there would be added value in having an EU backstop is open, but I think probably it's not very strongly discussed currently. What I think is, I would like to stress again, is that there are things which are applicable everywhere. So the focus on how we build, where we build, the focus on prevention, that's true everywhere. The question of how a scheme should be designed, that's difficult to, there are specific questions. So you have the example of Spain, where you have a very wide coverage. You have other solutions where you are really focusing on high risk and vulnerable populations. So these are two different models. There is not one that is right or wrong. It's just different, and it's probably very much dependent on what is the local reality. So that's one of the questions. One of the key priority, I think, in any case, in the scheme is to make sure that you have the right signals, price signals or otherwise. So the scheme should really incentivize adaptation, and that was also very clear from the previous panel. If you have some state support for regulatory insurance, but that's true for any sort of insurance, you need to make sure that at the end of the day, there is, skin in the game. There is a convergence, and the global risk is being reduced, so that ultimately insurance penetration can increase. There is also a need for the insurance sector to keep adapting to this new reality, and one of the ways to do that is to move away more and more from simply paying out claims to advising. And I think we are seeing that happening, and it will probably happen more and more. So to really advise on where to build, how to build, and how to reduce risk, etc. So I think that's a trend that we are seeing, but there is really a responsibility to take there. I would like to finish with two things, perhaps. In terms of opportunity, I really think that what I heard today confirms that there is a need for, there is an opportunity in terms of research and innovation. I think that mitigating the risks will require access to more granular data, access to these sort of things, and really that is an opportunity that we should take. And I would also like to, there is always a discussion on climate issues, whether you would trigger a particular behavior by fear or by positive stories. The debate is open. I read that there are people in the two camps. I suppose both are true. I think we need to have we need to have a realistic story. So people need to be mindful of the risk they're exposed to, but we also should point to the solutions. And one of the challenges is that adaptation means avoiding costs. So there is always a difficulty in putting figures. But I see more and more stories about after a storm, a municipality or at whatever level, about the fact that the losses have been avoided because there was an effort to adapt. And so I think we all of us who have the possibility to communicate on these things, we should really try to also bring those positive examples so that they can serve for at all levels, for at municipality level, at academic level, etc., to really accelerate the adaptation and increase resilience. So that would be my second positive message. We need research and exchange of information, but we also need to have positive stories and try to communicate on them.
Yeah, thank you, Nicholas. Talia, you've been in the former final very clear on what are the needs at the municipal level. Now we are scaling. So, in hearing everything that we said here in the former finals, what you would say in terms of can we unlock the prosperous and sustainable Europe through making this an opportunity?
This combination actually probably represents what Europe should be doing on an everyday basis. We have the Commission, we have the science and research, we have the insurance, because maybe the positive word is to be insured, not to be risk insured or better risk prevented. And we have the planners, the people who are really competent the way our cities should be developed. And if we don't have them on board, maybe we will be very surprised when some disaster happens and we realize that it was the wrong position of the buildings and the utilization of every centimeter of land in order to, for example, sell more properties. And of course, the communities, the local and regional authorities, which is the level of governance which is directly confronted with businesses, with citizens, with the scope and gravity of the challenges. And I very much like the perspective to consider whether we should be optimists or whether we should be pessimists. Maybe it is the most difficult part of this challenge to be a realist, because in order to be a realist, you should be dealing with the truth. And truth and authenticity comes from data, which is properly translated into good set of actions that could really benefit our prosperous and competitive development. Congratulations for the positive perspective of looking at risk governance in general, and for the desire to look for the collaborations that will really bring sustainable solutions. And because I'm a part of the group that is representing European local and regional authorities, we are really engaged with considering how in this field we can make decisions together, because we are used to work and to address challenges and opportunities together. And I think European Committee, the regions, is quite a good and active partner of the European Commission, of the European Parliament, and we are very engaged with delivering concrete solutions in this field. But what I want to add, it is not very easy to be the last one and to listen to the good interventions of all of you, and of course to know how difficult sometimes it is to be on the front line, because for a person representing the local politicians, we very often know how to make things better. But we unfortunately are in a very complicated position, being not very well listened to by the national level, and sometimes not possible to be directly impacted or directly influenced with proper tools by the European level. And in this regard, I think that we can be on the first set of activities, be engaged with translating to citizens and to our people what resilience is, because sometimes we are using such challenging lexical terms that people, they do not understand. For example, when we are talking about the mission for climate neutrality, nobody probably gets what we are meaning. But when we said that we have to do something in order to decrease the emissions, when we have to plant more trees, when we have to have balance between places for our cars and places where the green areas will combine and will decrease the heat waves in the summer, when we explain that it is not a very good tendency, if you are private owner of forest, to decide and to plan to cut all the trees. So these are the simple actions that we have to use in order really to get our citizens on board, because it is sometimes in the misunderstanding that we are losing the engagement of our citizens. And very often I give the example with the big boards that we are obliged to place when we implement €1 million projects, and people get only the figures and they remember the big figures. But most important, it is to communicate what is going to happen, how the renovation of the building will be implemented, how to, for example, a project related to climate and adaptation, our children can be really more engaged in these activities. So on local and regional level, we are engaged with different types of challenges, and on this level, I think we are also very much engaged with the opportunities to implement this policy in a way that it will help the higher levels. Because if we manage to prove that the mission for climate neutrality is, or an adaptation, is really working, and if we are used as platforms, then it means that the scaling up of this experiment will be possible. And this means that if we, of course, use this as an opportunity, could experiment different sets of, for example, insurance packages or collaborations among financial institutions and local authorities, businesses and citizens, in order really to create pilot models of collaboration, of communications, of debates, and then you can use this as a scaling opportunity. So dealing with this very strategical topic like risk governance, we really have to try and have the local and regional authorities not as the final phase of the value chain. This is possible. Of course, it is working. Unfortunately, we are seeing that the cohesion policy is now challenged by the model that was utilized by the resilience and recovery funding. But this will be a sterile, how to say, approach which will steal the soul of Europe. Because we need the citizens, we need the people to be inspired and to see these threatening situations, like increase of temperature, like more and more floods, some new hazard and new disasters, as not only a threat which will bring more barriers, which will bring more isolation, and unfortunately will not communicate that Europe is working so that nobody will be left behind. And one positive message, I think we should address this challenge, and we should work together in collaboration in different sets of initiatives in order to prove and to engage our people and our territories and communicate that they are not alone in addressing the risks and the challenges that the climate is really presenting to us. And something that I think is also true, if we consider resilience as the new competition, as you mentioned what I've said in the previous panel, I think if we as local leaders realize how important it is to be part of the resilience policies, we will be the leaders that will be the people who will support our territories in respect to attracting more investments. And one of the indicators could be the insurance and the modernized set of insurance packages that are present in our territories, because if we are not working in these fields, and if we are not accepting the, for example, the insurance agents and stakeholders as co-creators of our resilience future, then we will be probably in a position to realize that our territories are losing considerable part of its assets, because it is the businesses that will first react to challenges that are not addressed in a systemic and proper way. And I will finish with something that I don't know how will be affecting us, but I'm definitely sure that we must increase the speed of our efficiency, which means that we cannot blame any other segment for not being active in a collaborative and ecosystemic way. Sorry for also using this as a cliche, but without this comprehensive approach without seeing and knowing the different perceptions of risk management and risk governance, we will not be successful in this really fundamental change that will make the next generation existence.
Thank you. I think we have a few minutes for opening the floor for a couple of questions. Just so, before you decide, just to say that we are a mission project. And I had to congratulate cities because they were the only ones that were raising the point that you could not do climate neutrality without adaptation, right? As this is something that goes together. And that was not raised top down, it was raised bottom up. I think it's a very important point. And that links to prosperity of Europe, links to actually move forward. So now we can open for a couple of questions. Yes, you did. Okay.
Asablonda. Well, the discussion focused a lot on data, and I understand that for some countries where there is a low interest take-up, it's a big challenge. Data penetration, interest penetration is low, and data collection is very difficult. But let me give you the perspective from let's say more mature markets, which is France, and there is one risk is the excess of data availability. There is one topic we didn't address is FIDA. FIDA is the current hot topic in the insurance market, also in the banking sector. In a nutshell, FIDA is this text. We are in Brussels. It's a European text. FIDA is this text obliging at some point insurance companies to disclose all the data. In other words, insurance operating in Estonia will be allowed to have the information about the French markets. Operators in Malta will be allowed to have data related to Hungary, etc., etc. Let me share with you one anecdote. I visited California 2 years ago. The purpose of my trip was to discuss with the regulatory body. As you may have heard, some insurance companies decided not to renew their portfolio because of wildfires, and I wanted to understand why it happens. So for some technical reasons, the regulator, for example, prevented the use of modeling tools, etc. And then I asked about the regulator about this upcoming text, which is FIDA. It said, oh, it's going to be worse. Let me tell you why. If, in our opinion, from a American standpoint, if one insurance is number one in terms of market share in a given area, it's a very bad news for two reasons. The first one is because your price is too low. The second reason is because your competitors have information that you don't have. So if you start from the moment you will be disclosing all the information, all the data, you will be creating inassurability, which is the contrary of what you want to do, which is promoting insurance countrywide. So we discuss a lot about the scarcity of data. Let me tell you a little bit about the excess of data with bidding. So I'm sure there is a perfect balance between these two situations, but it exists. I know that Insurance has published a white paper on FIDA. I'm sure they can discuss a little bit more about the official position, but I can tell you that the French lobby of insurance has raised as we say in football, the yellow card, saying that watch out, it's going to be a dangerous kick.
This is a very interesting also point, not that the right balance needs to be reached in order not to touch none of the sides. So thanks for the comment. Is any other question for the panelists?
I would like to ask Daniel, what do you or does your municipality do to raise the level of awareness of the citizen in your city or settlement in the field of disaster resilience?
Well, very good question. I think we are trying to be really active in these fields. I'm not sure that we have reached the best level of informing and educating our citizens. But yes, we are trying to be very active in the field of how to say, not teaching, but at least communicating and good pieces of information about the possible hazards and disasters in my city. One of the things that I would like to share is the fact that within the Mission for Climate Neutrality, we are now having a platform. It is greengovernment.pg. And thanks to another project, it is again EU funded, Mount Resilience. It is a Horizon project. Actually, the focus is mountainous municipalities and how they, through innovation, address climate challenges. We are now developing 3 innovative solutions that will create the opportunity for having in my city early prevention platform that will provide real-time information from high-quality technical solution, including very sophisticated cameras in the forest areas. It will be a prevention from fires. We are also having a good decision for water prevention, and also something that is in the field of using rainwaters for sustainable watering of our green territories. So we are trying to be very active in how to say in the field of energy efficiency. We are working very much directly with the citizens. Currently, we have a very good project called Net Zero Heroes. It covers a whole territory, a quarter of our city, and we work with them in different small size innovative solutions. For example, we provide that with some metering devices, and they learn about different components of the quality of living and many other activities. For example, now we try to work very, we try to be very active, and here Camellia is a good partner to work with our schools and kindergartens and engaging small children and students in knowing how to read the measurements. And this is something that is giving small size results, but I think they are more mostly with the perspective to be sustainable. And one thing with which I will finish, I can really share many other things, but we are now very much seeing the enthusiasm of not only people who live in my city, but also people from different parts of Bulgaria. When we organize one eco festival in the summer in the biggest mountainous glade of Bulgaria, and for 3 days we really live, work, and talk about sustainable way of living. And we try to be really every year much more better in using really approaches that showcase that we are trying to live less print on the nature and to provide for more sensitivity in our minds about how small steps can be really very important. But we need to be more systematic, for which we need really support from not only Europe but from different sources to have sustainable and constant communication campaigns or work. It is not a campaign, it is a constant work to be able to be in direct contact with our citizens. Because I realize that we had the biggest success when we meet personally or when we had ambassadors. For example, is in a village we can have 5 people that are speaking the same language with the words and language that is proper for the profile of the people. So I think yes, the big things are for the high levels, but as I have mentioned, and I think we know that hazards and disasters, they are everywhere, but it is on the local and personal level that you realize that it is really existing, and in order to manage with the fake news that there is nothing like climate change or there are no products, they are just using us to take us our time or money. It is really sad when you see the personal tragedy and you realize that maybe if you have done something in better or a different way, this house, this family, this disaster could not have happened. It would just be in our books and I'd say simulations.
I think it is a very good closing because it indicates that yes, there are opportunities to do things in the right direction, but it requires collaboration. It requires spaces where we can interact with the citizens. And I want to add here that I was privileged to participate in the Spanish Citizens Assembly for Climate Change. And from there, it was 100 people that could debate with their own language, ask for information a way they could understand. And they became 100 ambassadors, right? So this is true. I think this today is an example where you can pull communities together.
And have trust, because trust from the
That's the word that was missing. Yes, trust is very important, right? If you don't trust, you don't discuss, and you are not open to share what you're thinking. So I think I hope we had trust today here as well. So thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here. I'm probably the most ignorant one in this setting, and sorry for the questions. They were threatening or something like that. But it was a very delighting discussion.
If you allow me, just one sentence. I think you mentioned it as well. Insurance can also play the role of consultant and work together with the research, with scientists, with institutions, with the government. So, because a lot of is based on data, but I heard today also empirical data. We had a lot of empirical data and we have also a lot of experience. And since this experience is already there, we have to use it. So we had examples, we're talking with the government or urban planning or designers or architects. The data and the experience we provided was enlightening, and it's changed completely the state of design and planning for big projects. So this is a role that insurance can play, and there are a lot of scientists, engineers, data analysts within the insurance companies, so we can share all this wealth of information.
No, we had experiences like this in Soteria, where some insurance local companies were already helping the local authorities to model and to do things beyond actually sell an insurance, right? So I think we are creating this environment where we can work together. I guess what we need, and I will close the panel with this, saying that we need more spaces like this one. All right, it's not only about doing projects. It's about how we best or more efficiently share what is coming out of the projects. In particular, when we are engaging into the projects, local authorities, right? I think we have to be aware that we have to put ourselves into their shoes. And that's not an easy task for researchers either, right? So I think in more spaces like this, I hope that other projects will come at this one, will take the legacy of this one, and will also open spaces for this type of debates. So thanks a lot for being here. I think they need a picture, or they already took a picture or something like that. And I will disclose the panel. We are very close to finishing today. It's nothing that I can say on the closing that it will actually mirror what is in the discussion today. But I hope that you had fun. You learned as I did. I learned a lot. I think we have everything in the cooking recipe we need. Now we need to cook, right? And the point and my final remark is that we need to cook together. And to cook together, we need not to be everyone a master, but we need to be everyone one that contributes and respects the knowledge of the others. And we need to listen the ground. We need to listen the citizens. We need to translate the language of the citizens through the municipalities, through the regions. And I think what is coming out of the project, many projects in the mission, is actually how the mission could be refurnished to a next level. And I hope this they've been contributing today to that. And missions were actually a concept to lead to a transformation, right? And that's, I think, we're moving towards that. And so they also with the help of ICO and HED, are moving in that direction. So thanks a lot to all. Thanks for your patience, and thanks for being here today with all of us.